In the last couple of minutes, you had a federal judge sentencing Elizabeth Holmes of Theranos to more than a decade in prison. Remember, of course, Holmes was convicted about some business dealings related to this failed blood testing startup, found guilty of cheating investors out of hundreds of millions of dollars with false claims about Theranos' technology and business dealings. Those false claims helped Theranos raise something like $945 million from investors. Nearly $1 billion was raised off stuff that was ultimately found to not be true. It's because there was this promise of a medical revolution in blood testing that catapulted the company to $10 billion in value, but the tech was never there. It just never worked the way that Holmes and others promised that it would. Niala Charles is joining us now. So let me get into the nitty-gritty of this sentencing. I believe, and I'm just checking my notes here, prosecutors had asked for 15 years in prison. The defense had said no prison time, just home confinement. The judge ended up saying 11 and a half years behind bars, right? I mean, this is a significant sentence, and it largely tracks with what we've seen for defendants convicted of similar crimes, which is like roughly 16 years, according to some reports.
Right, Hallie. This is very significant because it is rare for people like Elizabeth Holmes to be charged for fraud, let alone convicted of it. So at this point, the judge now saying she'll be serving 11 and a half years in prison. Her defense tried so hard for this not to be the case. They've been arguing that she should serve no prison time because they say her intentions were good. This week, they submitted more than 100 letters from her family, her friends, and supporters saying that she did not mean for this to happen. And that included a letter from her husband who described her as being selfless and loving and described her as a loving partner and also a great mother. There was also a letter from Senator Cory Booker who says that he is hopeful that she will continue to make the world a better place. So those are the letters that were submitted from her defense in support of her not getting any prison time here and getting a lenient sentence, Hallie, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Prosecutors, of course, on the other end of that spectrum, although there was a max here of 20 years, they recommended 15 years, saying not only was she the face of Theranos, but she was also the mastermind of deception and lies. They say that this is one of the worst crimes when it comes to white-collar crime in the history of Silicon Valley. So this is also sending a strong message to Silicon Valley as well, because those entrepreneurs are known to work in different situations in which they basically fake it until they make it. But in this case, Theranos did not make it. Elizabeth Holmes' technology never was found to work in the way she said it would. She, of course, got famous off of the idea that with just one drop of blood, that she could give hundreds of blood tests, changing the way we see healthcare, right? Instead of having a painful process in which you have a vial of blood, instead getting it in a painless situation in which you just have one drop, like a prick. So it's huge. This is a huge message that's being sent, Hallie.
What I think is also important to remember here context-wise is what a huge star she was, a darling of the tech and medical industries. She was on the cover of magazines. People, I mean, she became a celebrity because of this. She pulled in incredibly high-profile people who were investing in her company, you know, former cabinet officials in various administrations, right? Like she, you know, we were showing some pictures of her. She was known for like wearing the black turtleneck like Steve Jobs everywhere. She had kind of a look. She very, very high profile. And no one even now is not, like the judge in his sentencing statement said, you know, this is sad because Ms. Holmes is brilliant, he said. But he said this is troubling on so many levels. What went wrong? I mean, that's the thing about it here. She has said, as you have noted, that she says she regrets her failings with every cell of her body, you know, and yet here she is convicted and heading to prison behind bars for maybe a decade. But I mean, a decade plus, by the way. Like, that's not saying who knows what happens with parole.
Yeah, Hallie, she had a meteoric rise, right? She's now 38 years old, but she started this company when she was 19. In 2014, Forbes named her the youngest female self-made billionaire ever. So this is huge. You mentioned the fact that she raised more than $900 million in funding from important people. You had former Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos. She invested $100 million in this company. And there's also former Secretary of States who invested a lot of money in this as well. And it's important to note here that a lot has changed since she started this company. She came into the courtroom today visibly very pregnant. She has a 1-year-old son at home. And based on the information we have, the judge says she has to start that prison sentence April 25th.
She's got a baby on the way,
27th.
Too.
She has a baby on the way. So based on just what we saw today in the courtroom, it appears she's very pregnant and most likely she'll have that baby prior to serving her sentence. But now she has to deal with the reality that she's going to be missing out a lot of important moments and years of her children's lives. Hallie?
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.